It's just a mindset. 10% happier self care journey. This is day three. So, the author of this course, which is called, this is within the 10% happier meditation courses, it's called Phrases for Stress. I'm on session 4, and it's called It's Just a Mindset. Thank you all for joining me. So the author, Joseph Goldstein, the way that he came up with this particular title, this particular phrase, "It's Just a Mindset," is that he was having a walk with his colleague one day. I think it was on a lunch break, he said, and he was sharing with her the things that he was dealing with, all of his fears, and just kind of like what he thought about it, how he thought he was going to be able to get through it or get over it. I think in one part he said something like, "It'll take years for me to recover from this," or something like that. And as he was pouring this out to her, she paused, or she stopped him and said, "Joseph, it's just a mindset, or it's just a mind state." And he said, it was one of those situations where, he's a therapist and, he knows this stuff. But he said, sometimes it's hearing it from someone else, even if you've been teaching it forever, it's hearing it from someone else that just, allows it to resonate. And it stopped him in his tracks. And he was like, yeah, it's just a mind state. So in this particular course, as he and Dan Harris are talking about it, they just talk about how, when you're dealing with different emotions, these are passing states of mind, and they come and they go. So, of course, your mind is going to give attention to them, but what we have to be careful is where we make a mountain out of a molehill, where we give way too much attention to something that doesn't really call for it, especially when we put ourselves into unhealthy places of narratives and loops and that kind of thing. So he just used this practice. He developed this phrase and he used this practice just to give yourself a reminder to kind of bring you back, to center, so to speak, to remind yourself, like, whatever you're thinking about, whatever you're dealing with, whatever is like looping in your mind, whatever fears you have, is just a mindset. I keep saying set. It's just a mind state. I guess it's pretty much one and the same. It's just a mind state, and this is about reprogramming your mindset. So, there's a few notes that I wrote down that I want to share with you all about this topic, and it goes into a meditation which I really found helpful around this concept. So, it's just a mind state. Fear is a changing mind state that will go just as easily as it comes if you let it. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. This particular session today, inspired me to write a few original quotes. So that's the first thing. Fear is a changing mind state that will go just as easy as it comes if you let it. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. I was explaining yesterday that that's one of the things that I learned about myself as a serious problem solver and a serious analytical person, that it really helps me, when I'm problem solving or I'm planning, it really allows me to be productive mentally. But if I'm dealing with something that's uncomfortable or undesirable for me, then it winds up being a mental loop that I get into. And it's okay if I'm able to sort it out and move on with it. But where the problem comes in is if it's something that I either have to just be patient with, and I know it, so I am being patient, but I might be rehearsing it in my mind, like rehearsing the outcome, or rehearsing how I feel, or rehearsing how undesirable it is. And then because your emotions go along with that, then that starts to become a feedback loop. And then before you know it, I'm like looping in my head about something that I can't change or that requires patience. And I'm on that journey, but at the same time, I'm taking all these feelings on along the way, like every step of the way, and it becomes unhealthy. So I just learned that, with my over analytical and problem solving mind, I just have to be careful of those things that can't be sorted out right in the moment and that require like just patience or acceptance in order to stop that loop. And yesterday was about the phrase of dead ends. When you have that kind of loop and you just take a moment to let yourself know that like this is a dead end. This is not going to go anywhere necessarily, and it's okay, but there's no need in continuing to rehearse that feedback loop, right? So the second note that I came up with is to become mindful, take suffering or tension as feedback rather than a problem. It was one of the things that they were saying in the course. And I really appreciate that because it really is about just like subtle changes of mindset. If you can take the feelings that you're having as feedback for you to let you know like how you're doing, then you can have that information come to you without creating something out of it, and I thought that was really helpful because if you see it as a problem, then you'll go into all kind of emotional frenzies. But if you just see it as feedback about the problem, then you can make that like that place of detachment. And years ago, I came up with this concept called the wedge. And it was when I was doing some mental reprogramming. And I realized that I could take my feelings and I could have my feelings, but I could always put this wedge, and I imagined a door. I could always put this wedge between my feelings and like the reality that I was facing or the things I was thinking about, or like the opinion that I had and other opinions. I could put that wedge there. So that way I can have my feelings, but become detached enough in order to allow for other realities and in order to not get so caught up in my own feelings that they became a detriment to me where I couldn't be open to other things. So to me, that speaks about that too. You can become mindful and take suffering or tension as feedback rather than a problem. Hey, what's up, Kev? What's up, everybody? Thank y'all so much for joining me on this self-care journey. This is fun. I'm enjoying documenting this. And I'm going to tell you all some other info too, so hang out for a second. So the next thing is struggling with something is an indicator of not accepting. When you accept, the feeling of struggle dissipates. And that, is an original quote of mine based off of these notes. It's an indicator of not accepting. So, acceptance is one of those things that I have been like talking about and practicing in my own life for a while. It's one of the things I think about daily the most, and like I believe in the most. And I'm gonna tell you this, right? It's interesting because I believe in acceptance over expectation. I put up a quote on Facebook a while back where I said my religion is acceptance over expectation, and I put that up purposely, and I even use the religious context purposely because I know that many of us that have different religious and spiritual paths, those paths focus heavily on expectation because it helps the mind with, positive affirmation and positivity and optimism to be able to get through things. And while that is really healthy, everything has its pros and its cons. And what I realize is that you can get to a place of expectation that allows you to not actually have what I feel is more important, which is like a healthy dose of acceptance. I believe acceptance is more important than expectation because there are many things in our lives on a daily basis that we can't change, that's out of our hands, like getting older, aging, like, living circumstances and situations. And because we're all dealt different cards, there are some things in our situations that we can be optimistic and positive about and overcome. But then there's those things that are the inevitables of life, the unchangeables of life. And to me, being an expectation in those areas is fruitless and is counterproductive, because the truth of the matter is the reality is that it won't change, or that things have to be a particular way. Like that's what life is. So I think acceptance to me, every religion, every spiritual path, like every philosophy should be more so based on acceptance and not rewards or expectations, because acceptance is what allows us to deal with these things in life. And for me, to be honest, I believe it brings you to the deepest place of peace and contentment. I think that that's really what it is. I think that true peace and contentment comes from acceptance and not expectation, even though expectation has its place in the journey. So my religion is acceptance over expectation. And I think, and then I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but I really think that it's the deepest place of immaturity and needing of growth in every spiritual path and religion on the planet, to be honest. That's my take on it. We'll talk about that more later in other news. But anyway, but for, what is worth here, struggling with something is an indicator of not accepting. When you accept, the feeling of struggle dissipates, and it is really true. The more you sink in and accept something, the more you just don't have those feelings of tension and resistance, And two more things I took note of with this course, with this session today. When dealing with undesirable narratives and loops, remind yourself it's just a mind state. That's what this whole thing is about. That's pretty self-explanatory. And this was a meditation tip that I learned. When meditating, use the phrase in, out when breathing to help keep your mind focused on your breath, and that's something, in this journey of meditation, I started a while back, and one of the first things that I learned a while back, and that I'm, now reinforcing as I pick up on it now, is, and I would say probably this is a huge myth with meditation. I probably talk about this every time I talk about meditation. Many people believe that the goal when you meditate is to in a forced way, clear your mind, almost as if you're not meditating, as if you're not thinking about anything else, and you're just focusing on your breathing. While the goal is to focus on your breathing, the true definition of meditation is not being able to stop your mind from thinking about all the things that you're gonna think about, but it's about allowing those thoughts to pass and being an observer of those thoughts while not fully being overwhelmed or overtaken or entertaining those thoughts where they take your mind that place. So you observe those thoughts and you just try not to let them take you way off track, and you remind yourself, you come back to that place of focusing on your breathing. The thing I learned initially about meditation and why this happens, and I would say this is my theory, my philosophy on it. Our mind is constantly going with chatter. It's constantly going with the day-to-day things that we have to take care of. It's like a whole laundry and grocery list of things that we're thinking about on a daily basis. What am I doing at work today? What am I doing outside of work? The responsibilities, the kids, the family, the health, the finances, all of this stuff is constantly going. When you decide to sit down and meditate and focus on your breath, it's almost as if your brain is finally, now I've got you in a place where you're just sitting down. Okay, now I want to talk to you about everything, so everything starts to go through your mind because you're literally taking a break in the midst of life and running and the hustle and bustle. You're taking a minute to just sit the hell down for a second, to just sit down and allow yourself a mental break. And that to me is when it's almost like your mind is great, now I've got your attention, so here's what I've been thinking about. So the goal isn't to in a forced way clear your mind. It's to just observe how much chatter is going on, and every time you observe it, then you go back to your breath. You go back to focusing on your breath. And basically what he said was to use the phrase in, out, to allow yourself to focus. And I love that because it's very simple. And by you saying in, out, you're making your mind focus on something real simple, and just, using it to realign yourself. So yeah, that session 4 from Phrases for Stress. Yeah, Kevin says I like that. Thanks everybody for joining me. The people that are here with me now and those that are joining later, thanks so much. I want to give all y'all shout outs, but I want to keep the video succinct as well. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. And yeah, Kevin, this has been really helpful. So this course that I'm taking, just to recap, is called 10% Happier, and it's an app that you can look up on your phone and download. It's by Dan Harris, the news anchor from ABC, who developed this course after having a panic attack like several years ago that led him on a path of like meditation. And it's filled with courses from different contributors. I hope to be a contributor myself one day as far as my words and my music. And the course that I'm taking right now within this larger course is called Phrases for Stress by Joseph Goldstein. So check that out when you get a chance. It's great, and I'm going to take you all on a journey day by day, give you notes, give you my original quotes that come out of it and my thoughts. So that's it. And then last but certainly not least, the music that you hear playing in the background that I'm using even for meditation and that kind of thing is called Contemplation, and it's from my newest project, my piano meditations project called Key Reflections. You can find that project on any platform that you have. If you have Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, whatever, you can find it on there. Pull it up, listen to it, use it for your quiet time and your meditation time. And you can also find it on my website, Aaron Hill TV, if you click on the music tab, if you want to go that way. But I prefer that it'd be easier for you just to go to your platform of choice. If you already have like a subscription for streaming or something like that, just search Key Reflections, Aaron Hill, check it out and enjoy. So join me tomorrow for day 4, and drop your comments and your feelings about what I'm expressing. And yeah, stay with me on this journey. It's really fun. If you want to join my email list, you can also do that by going to my website, aaronhilltv.com, and clicking join email. I'd like you to, because I want to send you all weekly updates, not just of this, but everything that's happening in the world of Aaron Hill and on Aaron Hill TV. So until tomorrow, take care, love you, and be well. Peace.